On the eve of my wedding, I was abducted and imprisoned for 3 days. During those 3 days, I lived worse than an animal, enduring brutal beatings every single day. By the time I was rescued, I discovered my childhood fiancé had already married someone else. My reputation was ruined and I was abandoned by my family. With nowhere left to turn, Silas Jew stepped forward and married me. 3 years into our marriage, I thought he was my lifelong salvation. Yet on our wedding anniversary, I overheard his conversation with his friends. Silas, are you really never going to tell Clara Shaw the truth for the rest of your life? Why tell her? Isn't it perfect the way things are now? Whatever Ivy wants, I'll use every means to grant her wish. As for Clara Shaw, it's fine for her to remain in the dark forever. I'll treat her well. You truly have a way, Silas. You had her kidnapped 3 years ago, left her infertile, and now you've got her utterly grateful to you. The cake slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. It turned out the person responsible for all my misfortune had been right beside me all along. What was that noise? Is someone outside? Footsteps drew closer inside the private room. I stepped back instinctively and hid behind a pillar. The person who opened the door glanced left and right, failed to notice the fallen cake, and stepped back inside. The surroundings were filled with noisy chatter, yet all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. My ears buzzed, and Silas G's voice echoed relentlessly in my mind. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from Silas Jew. Sorry, Clara, I'm still in a meeting. I'll have to come back late today. Don't wait up for me. Go rest early. Once I'm done with work, I'll take you traveling to make it up to you, okay? Silas Jew's tone was as gentle as always. He was always busy with work and often missed our anniversaries and Valentine's days. But he would always make it up to me afterward. He granted almost every wish I had without hesitation. More than once, I'd thought fate had been kind to me. Even though I'd suffered such a terrible ordeal before marriage, at least I'd met Silas Jew, the only person in this world who truly cared for me. He'd picked up my broken pieces one by one, cherished me carefully, and melted my cold heart with tenderness and affection. But only now did I realize how ridiculous everything I'd believed truly was. Before I could reply to Silas Jew's message, a familiar figure came into view from the corner of my eye. I turned my head instinctively, letting my long hair shield my face, yet I clearly recognized the newcomer. Ivy Shia, my own younger sister. She had gone missing as a child and only returned home at 18, becoming her parents' favorite. 3 years ago, on the eve of my wedding, I was abducted and subjected to unspeakable humiliation. The first news I heard after being rescued was that she had married Jude Chun, my fiancé at the time. That was the darkest period of my life. Ivy Shia knelt beside my hospital bed, crying and begging for my forgiveness. Jude Chun held my hand, pleading for me to bless their love. My parents frowned at me, blaming me entirely for everything that had happened. Jude Chun and I had grown up together. For 20 years I dreamed of becoming his wife someday. Yet in just 3 days, everything changed completely. Wow, Ivy, you look as beautiful as ever today. A man's compliment pulled me back to my senses. I walked quietly back to the doorway and listened closely to what was happening inside. Ivy Shia laughed. You still know how to sweet talk after all these days apart. No wonder so many young girls fall for you one after another. Ivy Shia's tone sounded extremely familiar and intimate. I couldn't help but think that after 3 years of marriage I still knew almost nothing about Silas Jew's friends. He always said his friends were hard to get along with. He worried they would remind me of my painful past. I'd thought he was being considerate for my sake. Yet I'd forgotten that if Silas Jew truly loved me, he would never allow his friends to slander me. My nails dug deep into my palm as I listened to the laughter and conversation inside the private room. Amid the chatter, I caught the sound of Silas G's voice. Aren't you worried, Jude Chun, with you coming out so late? Don't worry. He's swamped with work and hasn't finished for the day. Silas, I came to see you for something else. ... Peering through the crack in the door, I saw Ivy Shia sitting right beside Silas Jew, her hand resting casually on his thigh. Silas Jew was slightly obsessed with cleanliness. At home, he only ever let me tidy his personal clothes. Yet now, facing Ivy Shia's bold closeness, he showed not the slightest trace of displeasure. What is it? You know I'll agree to anything you ask of me. It's been 3 years since Jude Chun and I got married, but I still haven't gotten pregnant. He's grown much colder toward me lately. Silas, I want a child. Will you give me one? Ivy Shia's words nearly made me cry out loud. I clamped a hand over my mouth instead, staring fixedly at Silas Ju's face. Even at this moment I still hoped he would refuse, that he would hold on to the last line of boundary out of consideration for our 3 years of marriage. But I saw shock and panic on Silas Ju's face, not anger or reproach. In that instant, I already knew his choice. My anxious heart sank into cold calm. I turned and walked outside. Like a soulless walking corpse, only scenes from 3 years ago kept replaying in my mind. In truth, I had almost forgotten all the memories of those 3 days of imprisonment. The doctor said my mind had voluntarily sealed away part of the trauma as a form of self-protection. Yet every night in my dreams I only saw Silas Ju kicking open the iron door to rescue me. Behind him lay the sunlight I hadn't seen in 3 days. Dressed in a suit, Silas Ju walked toward me step by step, his eyes filled with worry and heartache. Then he knelt down and held me in his arms. The last words I heard before passing out were his trembling voice. It's all right now, Clara. You're safe now. Later, when Silas Ju proposed to me, videos of my abuse had spread all over the internet, and everyone shunned me. Only he walked against the crowd and knelt down before me. He said, Clara, marry me. I will never let you suffer for the rest of my life. He said, Clara, trust me. I will take good care of you forever. But in the end, Jude Chun lied to me. And he lied to me too. It was already past midnight by the time I got home. Silas Ju still hadn't returned. There was no follow-up to the message I'd chosen not to reply to. I sat on the bed, staring blankly at the wedding photo hanging on the wall. In the photo, I was gaunt and hollow-eyed, yet Silas Ju looked at me as if I were a priceless treasure. Over these 3 years, Silas Ju had indeed taken good care of me. He'd helped me step out of my shell and learn to face the world again. But the salvation I'd believed in turned out to be an endless abyss. My phone vibrated once more. It was another message from Silas Ju. Clara, I'm sorry I can't make it back tonight. I'll definitely make it up to you tomorrow when you wake up. Before I could process it, another message popped up right after. It was from Ivy Shia. Sister, I know you were outside just now.
I saw you.
Doesn't it hurt watching your husband chatting and laughing with me? If I can take one person away from your side, I can take the last one too. Sister, in the end, everything that belongs to you will be mine. Attached to Ivy Shia's message was a photo, a pure white hotel bed. On the floor beside it lay Silas Ju's coat. A sharp stab of pain pierced my heart. I'd never understood why Ivy Shia hated me. Now I no longer cared to know. I closed my eyes as tears streamed down my cheeks. I tugged at the corner of my mouth into a bitter, helpless smile. 3 years ago, my parents abandoned me because my reputation was ruined. I didn't cling to them and simply walked away. 3 years later, Silas Ju betrayed me. I would not cling to him either. I no longer wanted what was never truly mine. I stood up, took down the wedding photo from the wall, cut it to shreds with scissors, and tossed the pieces into the trash can by the door. I carefully screenshot all of Ivy Shia's messages and saved them in my photo album. Leaving was inevitable, but I would not leave without fighting back. Silas Ju didn't come back until noon the next day. The moment he saw me, he stepped forward quickly, trying to pull me into his arms. I'm sorry, Clara. I was in the wrong yesterday. Standing close, I could even smell the strong perfume lingering on his body. There were also obvious hickeys on his neck. I turned aside, dodging his embrace, and spoke softly. You reek of alcohol. Go take a shower quickly. Silas Ju froze for a moment, then laughed lightly. All right. I bothered my Clara. It's my fault. Here, this is your anniversary gift. Hurry and see if you like it. Silas Ju pulled a box out of his pocket, revealing a ruby ring inside. Ever since our marriage, he'd often given me gifts. I always told him he was being extravagant, but Silas Ju would say giving gifts to one's wife was a husband's duty. Looking back now, perhaps it was never just duty, there was also a hint of atonement. I forced a faint smile and accepted the gift. Thank you. I love it very much. No need to thank me. By the way, Clara, Uncle Shia is holding a charity banquet today. Do you want to come with me? Silas Jew looked at me with a hint of worry, afraid the mention would stir up painful memories. From what I remembered, my parents had once doted on me deeply. It wasn't until the abduction 3 years ago that I saw their true colors clearly. They had only loved the perfect, admired Miss Shia, not the flawed Clara Shaw. All right. Hearing my reply, Silas G. let out a long breath and reached out to pat my head gently. I knew my Clara was the strongest person. While Silas Jew was taking a shower, I quietly took his phone from the table. Silas Jew had told me his phone passcode on our very first day of marriage. Yet over these 3 years I had trusted him far too deeply, never once checking his phone. I never knew that he and Ivy Shia had never broken off contact throughout all this time. I flipped through their chat records page by page, capturing every single word with photos without missing a thing. Time was pressing, so I did not delve into the hidden meaning behind every sentence. Right before the sound of running water stopped, I put his phone back exactly where it belonged. Silas Jew noticed the missing wedding photo, but I brushed it off with an excuse that it had accidentally fallen down. He did not press further, only saying we would take nicer photos together sometime later. Looking at Silas Jew's smile, a sour ache welled up inside my heart. Sometime later? How much time did we even have left? It had been 3 whole years since I last attended a banquet like this. The moment I appeared on Silas Jew's arm, I felt countless eyes fixed on me. Some were filled with pity, some with curiosity, and others with gossip and mockery. Silas Jew patted the back of my hand and spoke softly. Don't be afraid, Clara. I'm here. I stared at his profile. At this moment, I longed to know what thoughts lingered in his mind when he said such words, being the mastermind behind all my suffering. Sister Silas, you finally arrived. Sister, it's been ages since I last saw you. Ivy Shia walked over hand in hand with Jude Chun. Jude Chun looked at me with obvious embarrassment, but I only glanced at him once before looking away. Ivy Shia smiled and said, You've rarely gone out since getting married, sister. Are you still troubled by what happened 3 years ago? What happened back then was never your fault. You were the victim. There's no need to be so cautious. In an innocent and naive tone, Ivy Shia instantly tore apart the protective shell I had kept around myself. Silas Jew's body stiffened for a split second. Jude Chun tugged Ivy Shia's arm, signaling her to stop talking. Yet Ivy Shia continued gently. Or is it that you still mind me marrying Jude 3 years ago? Ivy Shia's words were like a bomb dropped right in the middle of the crowd. So this is the eldest Miss Shia who had that scandal 3 years ago? How dare she show her face at this banquet? Exactly. If I were her, I'd stay home and cry forever. I heard after what happened, not only did her fiancé leave her, even her own parents cut off all contact with her. In the end, it was Mr. Jew who married her. Tisk, what a fool for taking on such a hot potato. Mr. Gio is just too kind. He rescued her and was even willing to take on this troublesome burden. Unbelievable. Whispers of gossip surrounded me one after another. Triumph grew clearer in Ivy Shia's eyes, as if she waited to see me break down in tears from the humiliation. But she was destined to be disappointed. I had crumbled countless times over this incident before, yet I was not the one at fault. I was not the one who deserved to fall apart or suffer. Why should I have to bear all the blame and pain alone? I stopped caring a long time ago. A man who abandons his childhood sweetheart fiancée so easily will surely abandon his wife just as casually someday. I even have to thank my generous younger sister for taking up second-hand goods. The moment my words fell, the noisy crowd fell dead silent. Ivy Shia and the others stared at me in shock. After all, this was the first time I had ever spoken such sharp words. A cold snort came from not far away. Marriage sure changes a person. You speak with such confidence now. Clara, Shia, you truly have a heart of stone. You never once came home to visit us. In 3 years, my parents walked over side by side and stood beside Ivy Shia. Father frowned at me and said coldly, Did we raise you to speak to your sister in such a tone? Apologize to her. At once. Ivy Shia lifted her chin slightly toward me, her eyes brimming with triumph. Silas Jew stepped in front of me and said softly, "Father, Clara hasn't attended a banquet in a long time." She merely spoke without thinking for a moment. "I apologize to you on her behalf." Silas Jew's gesture seemed kind-hearted, yet it firmly pinned me as the one in the wrong. Frankly speaking, he had never once thought me innocent. 3 years ago and now it was all the same to him. The farce ended with Silas Jew's apology. He followed my parents alongside Jude Chun chatting with the guests about work matters. Bored, I stood up and headed to the restroom on the second floor. But Ivy Shia blocked my way when I came out. Half her face hid in the shadows, impossible to see clearly. Yet the mockery and disdain in her tone were unmistakable. "Sister, I never thought after 3 years you'd still be this pitiful. Our parents abandoned you back then, and now even your own husband refuses to stand by your side." I pressed my lips together and said coldly, "Ivy Shia, I have never wronged you, so what? I'm going to take everything that belongs to you." "Clara." "Shia, everything around you is meant to be mine. Jude Chun is mine, and Silas Jew can only be mine as well." After dropping those final words, Ivy Shia leaned against the railing. A crisp sound rang out, and her body flew over the railing like a butterfly. 1 second later, she crashed heavily onto the ground below. Amid the screams of the crowd, my eyes locked with Silas G's downstairs. Fortunately, it was only 1 floor high, and Ivy Shia was not fatally injured. She was rushed to the hospital immediately. After examination, she only suffered fractures to her calf and ribs. Outside the ward, my parents wore gloomy faces. They turned around and slapped me hard across the face. Father pointed at my face, his voice trembling with rage. "Ungrateful daughter. What did Ivy ever do to deserve such revenge from you? Their marriage was arranged entirely by us. If you have any grievances, take it out on us. Don't bully your own sister." Mother wiped her tears and continued, "Clara, we have always treated you well. Your sister was stranded outside since childhood and suffered so much. What is wrong with us wanting to make it up to her? We never expected that raising you in luxury would turn you into such a disaster. Don't ever let us see you again." My cheek burned with stinging pain, yet hearing their words felt oddly ordinary to me. After all, 3 years ago, they had already driven me out into the cold, rainy night. They ignored me kneeling and kowtowing repeatedly at their gate. That night, the tightly closed door never opened once. Now their words were nothing more than sprinkling salt on my healing wounds. "Father, Mother, we can't be sure Clara did this. You're both tired today. I'll take Clara home first." Silas G. put his arm around my shoulder and led me away from the hospital. We remained silent all the way. Only after getting in the car did I stare blankly at his face. "Silas Jew, you also think I'm in the wrong, don't you?" Silas G. only drove without looking at me. His grip on the steering wheel was extremely tight, veins bulging on his arms. "It's all right, Clara. No matter what you've done, I will always stand by your side." He never believed in my innocence, never tried to prove it for me. He only kept declaring his stance superficially. How ridiculous! I turned to look out the window, ignoring him completely. In the middle of the night, thinking I was asleep, Silas Gu snuck out once again. I followed him all the way to the hospital. No one else remained inside the ward. Silas Gu sat by the hospital bed and said coldly, "I've already checked. The railing was deliberately damaged beforehand. Ivy Shia, you did this just to frame Clara." Silas Ju's tone sounded as if he were defending my injustice. Yet even knowing the truth, he never spoke up for me in front of my parents. Lying in the hospital bed, Ivy Shia smiled softly. "Yes, I did it on purpose. Silas, will you expose me?" Silas Ju stayed silent. After a brief pause, Ivy Shia spoke in a wrong tone. "I'm scared, Silas Ju. I'm so scared. I'm afraid you'll truly fall for her, afraid even you will leave me too. ... That will never happen, Ivy. Ever since you saved me by the river when we were 6, I've known you are the only one I will ever love for the rest of my life." Inside the ward, Silas Ju held Ivy Shia's hand tightly, gazing deeply into her eyes. I turned around and saw Jude Chun standing not far away, his face equally grim. "What a coincidence! Your wife is having an affair with my husband. Are you also here to catch them? Jude Chun walked me out of the hospital. Only when we parted did he look at me, his eyes filled with tangled guilt. Clara, I wronged you 3 years ago. After you disappeared back then, I suffered and despaired. But I am not only Jude Chun, I am also the sole heir of the Chun family. I had to get married and my wife had to be a young lady from the Xia family. She had to be a flawless crystal untouched by blemish. Jude Chun's voice was low. In his eyes, now calmer and more mature than before, I could no longer find traces of the memories we once shared. Jude Chun and I grew up together. I once believed he loved me as deeply as I loved him. Only now did I realize his love could belong to anyone. I once hated him, resented him. But now all hatred and resentment had faded away, leaving only calm indifference. Jude Chun, since you feel so guilty toward me, do me a favor. There is more to the kidnapping case 3 years ago than meets the eye. I want you to find the real mastermind behind it, and give me the truth I deserve. Jude Chun's gaze turned resolute. Then he nodded firmly. Very well. I will do it. Silas Ju held immense power and influence. I was no match for him alone. But Jude Chun was. While Ivy Xia stayed in the hospital, Silas Ju visited her often. I bribed a young nurse at the hospital who regularly sent me photos of their intimate moments. I kept all this evidence hidden, waiting for the day of our divorce to catch Silas Ju completely off guard. Jude Chun also began investigating the events of 3 years ago. Secretly, I sold all the expensive gifts Silas Ju had given me, converting them into cash. One day he noticed several pieces of jewelry missing from my vanity and asked in confusion, Clara, where are the necklace and earrings I gave you? They're too valuable for daily wear, so I put them away safely. Silly girl, they're not that precious. If you like them, I'll buy you more next time. Silas Ju smiled and patted the top of my head gently. He played his part so perfectly that I once truly believed he loved me. Yet love always bears flaws. Only feigned love can be this flawless. After Silas Ju left, I took the signed divorce agreement out of my bag and placed it on the table. My phone buzzed with a provocative message from Ivy Xia. Today's Silas made me soup himself. Clara Shea, has he ever cooked for you? He never had. As far as I could remember, Silas Ju had never once stepped into the kitchen. I screenshot the message as usual, grabbed my bag, and left home. Jude Chun asked to meet me at a coffee shop. He had already been waiting for a long time when I arrived. Jude Chun looked grave as he pushed 2 folders toward me. Take a look. This is the evidence you asked for. I opened one folder. Inside were proofs that Silas Ju had hired men to kidnap me 3 years ago. The contents of the second folder took me completely by surprise. It was a paternity test report. Ivy Xia was not my parents' biological daughter at all. The absurdity and ridicule of it all left me frozen in place. I could even imagine how devastated and shattered they would be once they saw this document. Thank you. I truly appreciate this gift. I stood up to leave, but Jude Chun called out from behind me. Clara, I'm going to divorce Ivy Xia. Can we? His unfinished words made his intention clear. I paused without turning back. Jude Chun, let the past stay in the past. Without glancing at his expression, I strode out of the coffee shop. I photographed all the evidence and registered a brand new Weibo account. Then I posted everything online, proof of Silas Ju hiring kidnappers 3 years ago, the chat records and private photos Ivy Xia had sent me, along with the paternity test report. I also tagged official verified accounts. The one who saved you by the river 20 years ago was me. The one who gave you the amulet, wishing you a lifetime of peace and safety, was also me. But Silas Ju, if I had known back then that your lifetime of peace would cost me my entire lifetime of happiness, I would never, ever have saved you. Silas Ju was still at the hospital when his secretary called. Ivy Xia sipped the soup he had personally made, yet he could find no joy at all. All he could see in his mind was the cold, emotionless look in Clara Xia's eyes when she left home. In Silas Ju's memory, Clara Xia's eyes had always held a smile. At least in front of him, they were always curved like crescent moons. It seemed ever since our anniversary, Clara Xia had rarely smiled around him. He thought it was because he had missed that important day. But it would be fine. He could make it up to her later. Silas Jew planned to take Clara Shia traveling to relax once everything settled down. He was already thinking over travel destinations when his phone suddenly rang. Hello? I told you not to disturb me recently. I'm Mr. Gu. It's terrible. The internet is flooded with news of your affair. And what happened 3 years ago has all come out too. Silas Jew's mind buzzed into chaos. An affair? Had Clara Shia seen it too? What would she think if she had? Clara Shia was so fragile. She would be utterly heartbroken. Not even waiting for his secretary to finish speaking, Silas Jew hastily opened Weibo. The first thing he saw was the long post Clara Shia had written. When he read the final line, his phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the floor. How could this be? The one who had saved him was Clara Shia all along. Silas, what's wrong? Ivy Shia noticed his strange demeanor, her voice laced with concern. Silas Jew hung his head and murmured, Ivy, do you remember what you gave me after pulling me out of the river 20 years ago? Silas Jew's question stunned Ivy Shia. She had no idea about any of that. She had merely accidentally witnessed the scene all those years ago. It's been so many years I've long forgotten. Silas, why are you suddenly asking this? Silas Jew lifted his head. Meeting his gaze, Ivy Shia felt as if her throat had been constricted, unable to utter a single word. She forced a stiff smile. Silas, why are you looking at me like this? It's frightening. You're still lying. Ivy Shia, you're still deceiving me. Silas Jew stepped closer. His voice low and hoarse, bloodshot eyes burning with rage. His hands clenched tightly at his sides, his gritted expression as if he could devour her alive. What had he done? To the person who had saved his life, the one he had sworn to protect for a lifetime. He had actually ruined her life with his own hands. The memory of rescuing Clara Shia 3 years ago twisted his heart into a tight knot. Clara Shia's once fair skin had been covered in bruises all over her body. She lay on the ground, barely breathing. She had been left with nothing to cover herself, her brows furrowed even in unconsciousness. She had felt so light in his arms, like a feather ready to drift away at any moment. And he himself was the mastermind behind all of her suffering. What are you talking about, Silas? I don't understand. Has Clara Shia said something to you on purpose? She's definitely trying to drive us apart. Silas, Before Ivy Shia could finish her words, Silas G grabbed her by the throat. Ignoring her injured body, he dragged her roughly off the hospital bed. Ivy Shia cried out in pain, breaking out in cold sweat all over her forehead. Silas, you're hurting me. What are you doing? Have you lost your mind? He had indeed lost his mind. The moment he thought of Clara Shia's helpless, broken appearance, all his reason vanished completely. Just as Silas Jew was about to lash out further, the ward door was suddenly pushed open violently. Spotting Shia's father and mother standing at the door, Ivy Shia cried out desperately as if seeing a lifeline. Mom! Dad! Save me! Silas Jew has gone crazy, he's going to kill me. Yet the couple did not rush to her aid as Ivy Shia expected. They merely stood frozen at the door, murmuring in disbelief. Are you really not our biological daughter? Before Ivy Shia could reply, Silas Jew spoke in a heavy tone. No. I fabricated the paternity test report and sent you to the Shia family. I was behind everything that happened. ... After posting on Weibo, I changed my SIM card. The money I had saved was more than enough for me to buy a house and live peacefully on my own. Silas Jew's scandal exploded all over the internet. I saw my parents issue a public apology, breaking down in tears before the cameras, begging me to come home. Jude Chun announced his divorce from Ivy Shia. Ivy Shia was driven out of the Shia family. The police found me on the 4th day after the incident broke out. They asked me to go to the station to assist with their investigation. I cooperated fully with the statement recording. Those once unbearable, agonizing memories no longer filled me with despair when I recalled them now. Even the young police officer taking my statement had his eyes red again and again. As I prepared to leave, another officer blocked my path. Ms. Shia, Mr. Jew is asking to meet you. Would you agree? I hesitated for 2 seconds, then nodded. Only a few days had passed, yet Silas Jew looked like a completely different person. His expression was haggard, his jaw covered with unshaven stubble, his eyes bloodshot with heavy dark circles underneath, making him look years older. At the sight of me, Silas Jew's eyes lit up briefly before dimming instantly. I thought you would never want to see me again. I sat across from him, my expression calm and indifferent. Honestly, I thought so too. But after everything you've put me through, I couldn't leave without seeing you face your final fate. A bitter smile tugged at Silas G's lips. Tears slipped down his cheeks. I'm sorry, Clara. I'm truly sorry. I thought Ivy was the one who saved me. I never imagined I would be the one to ruin you so completely. Every word Silas Jew spoke was filled with apology. Yet I could not feel a shred of genuine remorse from him. He was only sorry to me as his savior, not to the innocent girl who had been hurt and destroyed by him. If I had not been his savior, if I had merely been an ordinary innocent victim, would he still shed these tears and apologize? I would never know. All I saw were crocodile tears. Seeing me remain silent, Silas Jew placed the divorce agreement before me. I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness now. Setting you free is the only thing I can do for you. There was a tone of self-mockery in his voice. I took the divorce agreement without hesitation and stood up. This is exactly what you owe me. So there's no need for thanks from me. The moment I turned to leave, I heard Silas Jew's voice behind me. Clara, once I get through all this, can I pursue you again someday? I did not answer him. We both already knew the answer. I left the police station with the divorce agreement, only to run into my parents rushing over in a hurry. Tears welled up in their eyes the moment they saw me. Mother's hands trembled as she reached out to touch me. Clara. My Clara. I stepped sideways to avoid her touch. Excuse me, Uncle Aunt. I'm in a hurry to leave. My words cut deep into them, pain flashing across their faces. Father stepped forward, speaking earnestly. Clara, we know we were wrong before. We understand you're angry, but we are your birth parents after all. You can be angry with us, but how can you cut us off completely? I could not follow his twisted logic, and asked coldly in return. I am also your biological daughter. When the incident happened 3 years ago, you were angry too, but how could you abandon me so easily? How could you calmly let Ivy Xia marry Jude Chun after I was kidnapped? How could you drive me out of the family simply because my reputation was tarnished after I came back? Their faces turned deathly pale under every sharp question I made. I took another step forward and said coldly, Silas Jew is the mastermind of everything, but you two were his accomplices, weren't you? Tears streamed down Mother's cheeks. She kept shaking her head, denying my words. No, it's not like that. Clara, we only wanted to make up to Ivy because she'd been away from home for so long. We never meant to hurt you. Truly, we never did. To make up for her, they chose to compensate her by hurting me. But what had I ever done wrong? When my younger sister went missing, I was only a child myself. I had done nothing at all, yet I had to endure such pain. Why should I be the one to suffer? Ignoring their pleas to stay, I walked straight past them. The money Silas Jew had left me was more than enough to live comfortably for the rest of my life. I had no need to work. I only needed to live each day peacefully. Somehow they found my new address and kept coming to my door to pester me. I grew weary of their harassment, yet I was unwilling to move away just like that. No matter how much money I had, it could not be wasted on constant relocation. Then one day, they suddenly vanished from my life. From online news, I learned that the Xia family company had suffered a massive financial crisis, leaving them swamped with work. I breathed a sigh of relief. I knew who was behind this. Switching to my chat window with Jude Chun, I hesitated for a long time before sending a message. Thank you, Jude Chun replied right away. You're welcome. I owe you this much. I never saw him again after that. In the second year after Silas Jew was sent to prison, Jude Chun married once more. This time, he wed another young lady from a well-matched family background. Word had it that his married life remained unhappy, and people often spotted him drinking alone late at night. After he sent me another drunken message, I blocked all of Jude Chun's contact methods. 3 months after Jude Chun's marriage, the Shia family officially declared bankruptcy. To pass the time, I took up a relaxed job. When I saw the news, I merely smiled it off. Notably, my new boss bore a 4-point resemblance to me in appearance. She was decisive, independent, and clear-minded. She seemed to take a liking to me, always asking me out for dinner after work. One evening, she drank too much and clung tightly to me. "I'll let you in on a secret, Clara Shaw. I'm your younger sister. I only just found out that I'm actually your sister. I'm so glad I'm your sister. Clara." "Shia? I finally have family now. ... Tears glistened in her eyes. I held her close and whispered softly by her ear, "I'm glad I finally have a little sister too." It was then that I gained family once again, and felt the warmth of kinship for the first time in years. In the second year after Silas Jew went to prison, my boss and I moved in together. On my 30th birthday, she bought me a huge birthday cake. We walked side by side toward home and she asked me, "Clara, Shia, do you feel your life is incomplete without marriage and children?" When I was married, I never felt my life was complete either. Besides, a husband and children are not necessarily family. We are family, aren't we? She smiled and put her arm around my shoulder. "Yes, we're family." Across the street, a familiar figure flashed past in an instant. I knew I would never lay eyes on him again for the rest of my life. This story warns us, ****, judge people by their heart, not by appearances****. The heroine was kidnapped before marriage, abandoned by her fiancé and family. She thought her husband was her salvation, only to find he was the mastermind who retaliated against her for mistaking someone else as his savior. The bias of family, the hypocrisy of love, and the selfishness of human nature pushed her into despair. However, she did not sink, but calmly collected evidence and fought back bravely, finally breaking free and starting a new life. It tells us that we should not endure when hurt. We must stick to our bottom line, keep evidence, and protect ourselves with reason. True salvation never lies in relying on others, but in being independent and loving ourselves first. Both family and love need mutual devotion. Stay away from biased or calculated relationships. Only self-love and self-strength can lead us out of darkness into our own light.